Well, I hadn't intended to do a video on this current situation in which we all find ourselves, the obvious subject. I didn't really know what I could contribute to it without adding to all the noise that's already out there. There's so many opinions doing the rounds, there's so much information, lots of it conflicts with other information, everyone's got something to say, everyone's got some observation to make, and I really didn't know what I could add of any value. But I have received a few requests from various people asking me to weigh in with my perspective on things, so I'm doing this just in response to that. So is the coronavirus real or not? Well, it's really impossible for me to say. Like anyone else, I've had access to information to suggest that it's a very real thing. It's been unleashed. It is certainly afflicting people. It's definitely causing the deaths that we're hearing about, and it's cause for concern. On the other hand, I've seen multiple evidence to suggest that the whole thing is some kind of psyop hoax, that what we're looking at is basically the common cold or the flu, which always occurs around this time of year, and it's being dressed up to be something more than it is, given a scary new name, and used as justification for bringing in all kinds of draconian measures to deal with the threat. So I really can't say for sure which of those scenarios is true. What I can say for certain is that this will not be some random occurrence that nobody could have foreseen, just some circumstantial thing that came along and took us all by surprise. I've seen enough, I've researched enough, and I know many of you have as well, to know that random events such as this don't just occur by themselves. They are made to happen. So whether this is a real virus that's been cooked up in a lab and put out there to achieve many different aims, or whether it's something that is some kind of hoax and it's not real like we think it is, this situation is too good to be true in terms of the New World Order overlords and the plans that they've had to subjugate and enslave humanity for so long. And so we only need to look at what this situation is being used as an excuse to bring in to get a perspective on it. It ticks so many boxes on the Agenda 2030 New World Order wish list that, again, I know many of us will be familiar with. So it's being used as an excuse to lock people down, to restrict their personal freedoms, and to restrict movement and assembly, gatherings, people getting together. We've seen that one nipped in the bud already. We're also hearing that mandatory vaccination may be on the cards. There's noise going on in mainstream media reports that a vaccine is being worked on right now, and there have been suggestions that it's going to be enforced to members of the public, and specifically children. So we need to watch out for that one. We know that for many years they've wanted to introduce vaccines containing who knows what kind of harmful products, possibly nanotechnology, possibly microchips, RFID chips to trace and track and surveil everyone. That's something to be wary of. We've seen it being used to justify martial law in various countries, notably Italy, I think France and Germany and many others as well. People are being forced to stay indoors. They're gradually having their rights taken away from them. I'm hearing that people in Italy had been allowed to go out and get personal exercise and go out and get supplies, but even those freedoms have been taken away now, and it's a totalitarian lockdown. So we can only speculate as to whether those measures are going to come into other countries as well. But that's another one on the checklist that we can tick off. What else do we have? It's being used to justify a cashless society. We're hearing claims that the virus is getting spread on banknotes, and so we all have to go to electronic payment. And a lot of shops that are remaining open are asking people to pay by contactless. So again, this is moving us towards the cashless New World Order society that they've wanted to introduce for so long. And so many of these things are being justified as measures that have to be taken to combat this deadly virus. We're hearing today, Monday 23rd of March, as I record this, that there's an emergency bill about to be pushed through in British Parliament, giving the government all kinds of extreme rights, so-called, although they're not rights in creation, measures that they can take if they deem it necessary to strip away even more of our personal freedoms and force us towards statutory measures that none of us would ordinarily consent to, but consent is off the table in this most extreme of times. So, is it really possible that this virus could have come along just randomly and nobody could have foreseen it, and it just happens to fulfill so many of these measures that so many of us have been warning against for so many years? Well, absolutely not. And then you have to factor in the drill, the Event 201, which occurred on the 18th of October 2019, just a few months ago in New York City. Interestingly, this was a couple of days before the Shoot the Moon NYC event that I took part in, organised by Billy Ray Valentine. Crow 777 and Jason were there, Wayne McCroy, and various different speakers. Just while all of that was going on, we had the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the Johns Hopkins University Society collaborating on this apparently fictional event scenario and predicting what the response would be should there be an outbreak of a deadly virus which would impact the entirety of the world. So what a coincidence that a few months later that's exactly what we're told we've got, and one of these drills took place just a few months before to assess what the reaction would be to it. Anyone that's paid attention to false flag terror events will know that every time one of these goes down there has been a drill simulating the exact same scenario and what the responses would be to it. So it's just another pattern that we've seen many times before. It's present in this one. We've also got the predictive programming clues. This is something that I've talked about many times in the past, where aspects of what is known to be coming are encoded into works of apparently fiction and popular culture. So we've got a small handful in this case. A lot of people might be familiar with the Dean Koontz novel called Edge of Darkness, which came out in 1981, almost 40 years ago. And in this novel, he talks of a deadly virus which has been cultivated in Wuhan, China. What a coincidence. And it then goes out to afflict the rest of the world. We also have a book from Linda Browne, who's a psychic author. And in 2008, she put out a collection of psychic prophecies where she spoke of, in 2020, there being a pandemic which sweeps the entire world, affects all countries, and it then goes away as quickly as it came. And according to her predictions, 10 years later, it comes along again, has a similar effect, and then is gone forever. 10 years from now, of course, is 2030, as in Agenda 2030, as in the plans of the United Nations and Bill and Melinda Gates and all these other people and networks. There was a new Asterix and Obelix cartoon book for kids, which came out in 2017. And in this, for no apparent reason, inexplicably, at a certain point in the story, all the characters start chanting coronavirus, coronavirus. It makes no sense in the context of the story, but there it is. It seems to be another clue as to what was coming. And then we have the movie Contagion, which came out in 2011, and there's a scene there where Lawrence Fishburne is playing some sort of government minister, and he's talking to a CNN so-called journalist, who I believe is actually a real employee of CNN who made a cameo in the film. And the Lawrence Fishburne character is talking about the measures that are going to be needed to combat this contagious new disease which has come along and taken the world by storm. And they talk about things like social distancing and self-isolation. Who had heard of these terms before this year? And yet in the movie Contagion 2011, 9 years ago, these very terms are being used. So it would appear that this event, whatever the true nature of it, is one that has been planned for a very long time, many years. And we know that the New World Order power lords that we're up against, that seek to suppress and enslave and control us all, do plan things decades in advance. Also, yesterday, the 22nd of March, was the 40th anniversary of the unveiling of the Georgia Guidestones. And this has a series of inscriptions on it, which are, again, pretty much like a wish list for what the controllers of this world wish to achieve and had wished to achieve 40 years ago, 22nd of March 1980. Of course, the one that most people will be familiar with is their desire to reduce the world population significantly. They talk about on this monument reducing it to a figure of 500 million, which is quite a reduction from the 7.5 billion that we're told we have in the world today. So it brings in the very real possibility that this event is intended to be a major world population reducer. 322 is a very important figure in occult circles as well. It's the number associated with the Skull and Bones Society, the Brotherhood of Death, so-called, within Yale University. And we've just passed the spring equinox as well, 21st, 22nd of March. And many commentators have spoken of the 40-day season of sacrifice, which is observed by the occult masters that we have in this world, and it runs from round about the 19th of March all the way through to the 1st of May, May Day, Walpurgisnacht, Beltane. These are very important occult dates. So what we may be seeing here is an event that's being done in line with occult ritualistic belief systems that these sick bastards seem to like adhering to. There have been many world events involving death on a massive scale. Whether the deaths really occurred or whether they were false flag psyop staged events, many of them have occurred in this period of the year, between about the 19th of March to the 1st of May. So we do have an interesting April ahead, I would suggest. It is possible that the peak of this, whatever it's going to be, may occur around the 1st of May. And in many ways, that's a best case scenario that we need to hope for, because if this whole thing can blow over, whatever it's been designed to achieve within a few weeks, rather than the few months or the several months or the 2 years that we're hearing about from certain quarters, then I'm sure that's something that all of us would welcome. What else did I want to say? Obviously, there's the suggestion that this event is being used as a smokescreen for the switch on of 5G technology, which apparently was perfected and unleashed in Wuhan, China, around about the same time as this so-called pandemic first broke. And 5G appears to be getting the switch on in many other parts of the world. And if people really are falling ill as a result of the harmful effects of 5G, is it possible that the symptoms of the virus are being used as justification for why so many people are getting ill? And, you know, the illness is not coming from the so-called virus, it's coming from the technology. That's something to be aware of as well. It is obviously a challenging and depressing time for many of us. And my best advice, based on what I'm now doing with my family, is that you shouldn't spend too much time absorbing mainstream media information on this. It's all fear-based. It's propaganda, it's mind control, it's designed to keep you in low vibratory frequencies. They want people afraid, they want people shit scared, they want people panicking and in chaos because they're so much easier to control in these kind of situations. And we've seen people policing themselves, you know, the so-called sheeple, as many refer to them, have pretty much been begging the government to come in and introduce vaccines and introduce social distancing measures and whatever else they deem to be necessary to nip this virus in the bud. So it's like the people are policing themselves. The slaves don't need a slave master when they can enslave each other. So this is a very dangerous phenomenon as well, where people are buying the official story hook, line and sinker and calling for the very measures that they've wanted to introduce for so long. They've just needed an excuse to put it out there under the radar. So what I'm doing is getting a daily update on what we're being told and leaving it at that. Once a day, I'm updating myself on what the mainstream media is saying about the whole thing, and I'm switching off for the rest of the day. I'm also trying to avoid social media postings to a very large extent as well, because as well as the conflicting information that I spoke about earlier, where people are arguing among themselves as to the true nature of what this is and what it's being used to bring in, there's also a lot of fear-mongering and negative stuff going on there with dire doom-mongering predictions of what awaits us just round the corner. A lot of this seems to be unfounded, a lot of it seems to be personal opinion, so there's no real value to you and your family in getting through this situation, in bogging yourself down with negative, doom-laden information like this. So for the most part, I'm just trying to stay positive and stay strong for my family. I've advocated many times in the past that we throw out all these heroes that we're given, the gurus and the celebrities that are served up to us. And a phrase that I've used is no more heroes. We don't need these people. We need to throw them out. And look at what we've had on that front. We've had the likes of Tom Hanks and Madonna and Michael Stipe of REM all weighing in. These people have been mocking us with the videos they've been putting out. You might be familiar with the one containing Michael Stipe of REM, where he's singing his song, "It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine." Then he goes on with his duper's delight smirk. He's laughing at the whole situation. He's saying, follow the government advice, follow what the CDC tells you, and just do what you're told. So there's Michael, the lifetime actor shill, doing what he's told, fulfilling his requirements. We had Madonna making a very bizarre coded sort of video, and she also put one out there where she's tapping away on a Smith Corona, go figure, typewriter at home. Because everyone still uses typewriters, right? They're a really common thing in 2020. Then there's Tom Hanks, who claims that he and his wife have contracted this disease. He self-isolated in Australia, and while he was away on his travels, in his luggage, he just happened to have packed a Smith Corona, of all brands, typewriters. So they are mocking us, and these celebrities know what's going on. They're privy to inside information that we're not, but you've got to throw them all out. Don't listen to any of these public figures, these household names. You can't trust a single one of them. You've got to be a hero for your own family now. That's what's required here. You've got to step up, be that stand-up guy or that stand-up woman for yourself and those around you. And I'm always one for trying to find the positive in any situation. If there is anything optimistic to be gleaned from this whole event, it is that a lot of people who had previously scoffed at and derided and dismissed so-called conspiracy theorists and so-called conspiracy nuts are now being forced to take a closer look at what the likes of us have been talking about and warning about for so many years, because so much of it is coming true very quickly and it's impacting everyone. So if this event can be used to cause people to pay closer attention to what many of us have been putting out there over the years, then we can find some positive in that. Thankfully, the weather here in the UK has been great the past few days. Spring has definitely sprung, and it's been possible to get outside while we've still got that freedom and absorb some vitamin D, get some sunlight, get some fresh air. And I've been doing that with my family. We've been going out for lots of walks, been going out for bike rides, just been enjoying being outside, being in nature, and enjoying this beautiful weather. That's another positive. People are now spending more time with their loved ones because it's been forced on us, but that can be no bad thing. We can turn this to our advantage as well. Just strengthen that family unit, support each other, stick together, try not to panic, try not to exist in fear, because that's the intention here. They want us fear-based, they want us stressed out, they want us worried. We just got to try and stay as sober and as level-headed as we can in this whole thing. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's around the corner. So it is a case of taking one day at a time. That's pretty much all I can offer you at this point. This is Monday, the 23rd of March. Stay safe out there. Be sensible. Don't believe the hype. Don't listen to too much mainstream media. And let's all get through this situation together the best we can. I wish the best of luck to all of you. Stay safe and speak to you again soon.